My name is Grace Smith. I am 38 years old. This is my story. I remember the chill in the air the day I came home from the hospital. The surgery had drained me, physically, emotionally, and even financially, but I was relieved to finally be discharged. All I wanted was to collapse into the comfort of my own bed, breathe in the familiar scent of lavender that clung to my pillow, and let the silence of home cradle me back to strength. But instead, I was greeted by a sight that cut deeper than any scalpel. Before I continue my story, kindly take a moment and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you. Back to my story. There on the porch lay my life reduced to boxes and bags. My clothes, shoes, even framed photographs, carelessly thrown together like they belonged to a stranger. The autumn wind scattered papers across the yard, and I just stood there, my hospital wristband still clinging to me like a reminder of how fragile I was. First, I thought maybe a mistake had been made. Perhaps the neighbors had been renovating and my things had been placed outside temporarily. But as I drew closer, I saw my wedding dress stuffed into a plastic bag, the lace crumpled and stained with mud. That was when my chest tightened, and I knew this wasn't an accident. David! My voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. The door opened, and there he was. David Smith, my husband of 12 years, stood in the doorway. His eyes were colder than the steel handles of the hospital bed I'd just left behind. There was no joy, no sympathy, not even curiosity about how I had fared in surgery. Instead, there was a wall, and behind that wall I could feel his indifference. "You're back," he said flatly, as though I'd returned from a grocery run and not from a week-long battle for my health. I clutched my coat tighter around me. "Why are my things out here? What's going on?" His jaw clenched. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder into the house as though someone inside might overhear us. That flicker of secrecy made my stomach churn. "David, talk to me." My voice was desperate, trembling. Finally, he spoke. "Grace, it's over. I'm done. I can't do this anymore." Those words sliced through me, each syllable pressing harder into my chest. My knees buckled slightly, and I steadied myself on the railing of the porch. My heart, still weak from the surgery, thudded painfully in my ribcage. "What do you mean you're done?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, though I felt myself unraveling inside. "I just got out of the hospital. I need you. I thought we were in this together." His eyes flickered with something, impatience, maybe irritation. But not love. Not even pity. "Grace, I've carried this marriage long enough. You've been sick, you've been needy, and I can't keep living this way. You're not the woman I married anymore." I couldn't breathe. I had spent months preparing for this surgery, fearing the complications, praying for recovery. The thought that the man I trusted most would abandon me at my weakest moment had never crossed my mind. "David, please, we can work through this. Just let me inside. Let's talk." But he shook his head. "There's nothing to talk about. It's already done." Behind him, I noticed a shadow move in the hallway. A woman's laughter followed, light and mocking, as if the cruelty of the situation amused her. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer to the door. "Who's in there?" He hesitated, but the hesitation was short-lived. A young woman appeared, her auburn hair tied loosely, her lips painted in a shade of red too bold for the time of day. She leaned against the doorframe beside him, her hand casually brushing his arm. "Grace," she said smoothly, almost mockingly. "I'm Mia. I suppose you could call me the upgrade." The audacity of it stunned me. My throat burned, but I refused to cry in front of them. I gathered whatever dignity I had left and took a step back. David didn't flinch. "You need to leave, Grace. I've already started the divorce process. You'll be hearing from the lawyer soon." Divorce. The word landed like a hammer. I had just fought for my life on an operating table, and now I was being discarded like yesterday's mail. I wanted to scream, to claw at him, to demand an explanation, but my body was weak and my pride held me still. Instead, I bent down and picked up one of the boxes, though the weight was too much for my fragile arms. My surgery scar pulled painfully as I tried to lift. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them spill. "You're heartless, David," I whispered. "Absolutely heartless." He said nothing. Mia smirked, her eyes glinting with a kind of satisfaction I couldn't understand. Together, they stood in the doorway of what had once been my sanctuary, watching me as though I were an intruder. I stumbled toward my car, one box in my arms, and placed it in the back seat. I couldn't carry the rest, not in my condition. I left them scattered across the porch, a monument to everything I had lost in one brutal afternoon. When I finally slid into the driver's seat, my hands shook so violently I couldn't hold the steering wheel steady. I sat there, staring at the house I once called home, the windows glowing warmly as though mocking me with the life that was continuing without me. I thought about calling my close friend, Amelia Parker. She had been by my side through every medical appointment, every tearful night when I feared the surgery would go wrong. But in that moment, I couldn't bear to hear myself say the words aloud. I couldn't bear to admit that while I was healing, my marriage had been dying. So I sat in silence, letting the cold seep into my bones. My chest ached, my scar throbbed, and my heart felt like it had been ripped open. I had returned home expecting comfort and care. Instead, I found betrayal and abandonment waiting like wolves at the door. Eventually, I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and with it, so did my resolve. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. Not another second. Not another breath. As I drove away, the rearview mirror showed the outline of the house growing smaller and smaller, until it vanished into the horizon. That house no longer belonged to me. That husband no longer belonged to me. And for the first time I realized I might have to start over completely. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour that day, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The weight of the box in the back seat was nothing compared to the heaviness inside my chest. Each turn of the road felt like a twist of a knife, every mile carrying me further from the life I thought I still had. Eventually, I pulled into a quiet park. Trees were shedding their golden leaves, and the air smelled of damp earth and wood smoke from nearby chimneys. I sat there for a long time, staring blankly out the windshield, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My mind kept replaying David's words, "It's over. I'm done." The betrayal wasn't just that he wanted out. It was when and how. He waited until I was most vulnerable, just days after major surgery when I could barely lift a box or drive without wincing. And he didn't just leave me. He replaced me instantly with someone new. I reached for my phone with trembling hands. My instinct was to call Amelia, my closest friend, the one person I knew would understand. I dialed her number, and as soon as she picked up, the dam inside me broke. "Grace." Her voice was warm, concerned. "Are you okay? Did you get home?" I couldn't even answer at first. My throat closed up, and all that came out were sobs. "Grace, talk to me. What happened?" I forced the words out, jagged and uneven. He put my things outside, Amelia. All of them. He said he's done. There's someone else." She was in the house. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "What? He did what? Grace, are you serious?" "I saw her. Her name is Mia. She was standing next to him like she belonged there. He told me he's filed for divorce." Amelia cursed under her breath, something I rarely heard from her. "That bastard. After everything you've been through? Through all these years? Grace, I swear if I could get my hands on him right now." Her outrage gave me a strange comfort. At least someone still saw my pain. At least someone still cared. "Come to my place," she urged. "You can't be alone right now. Pack what you can and come here. Please." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I can't lift most of it. My body still hurts. My scar. Leave it." Whatever you can't take, forget it. You need rest, not more pain. Just bring yourself. I promised her I would, but I stayed in that car for another 30 minutes, frozen in place. I was afraid to go back to the house for the rest of my things. Afraid of facing David again. Afraid of seeing Mia smirk at me one more time. Eventually, I gathered what little courage I had and returned. The sight that greeted me this time was even worse. David and Mia were standing on the porch, laughing together. My belongings were still scattered across the steps, some of them trampled by their careless feet. They didn't even bother to move them inside to keep safe from the weather. My life, my memories, my treasures, left out like garbage. When David saw me, his smile disappeared. He stepped forward, holding a manila envelope in his hand. "Grace," he said coldly, "I thought I made myself clear earlier. This," he held up the envelope, "is the divorce petition. The lawyer will be in touch with you this week." I stared at it, my hands refusing to take it. You couldn't even wait until I healed? Until I could at least stand on my feet without pain? Was our marriage really so disposable to you? He avoided my eyes. Mia didn't. She stared directly at me, her lips curving into that same smug smile. "David deserves to be happy, Grace. You should accept that." Something inside me snapped. "You think happiness is built on another woman's heartbreak? You think stepping into my home while I was lying in a hospital bed makes you strong? You're nothing but a parasite." Her eyes flared, but before she could speak, David cut in sharply. "Enough. Grace, this conversation is over. Take what you want and go. This is my home now. My home." The words stung like fire. That house had been ours, 12 years of shared bills, shared meals, shared dreams. I painted the walls. I planted the garden. I built that life. And now he erased me with a single sentence. I bent down slowly, my body protesting every movement, and picked up one of the photo frames from the ground. It was a picture of us on our wedding day, David in his black tuxedo, me in that lace gown now crumpled in a trash bag. We had been smiling, glowing with promises of forever. I looked at the frame, then at the man standing before me, and it was like staring at two different people. The one I married was gone. In his place stood someone colder, harder, utterly unfamiliar. I placed the frame back into the box and turned away. I didn't want the envelope. I didn't want another word from him. I walked to my car, my body trembling but my steps steady. "Grace," he called after me, but I didn't look back. If I had, I might have shattered into 1,000 pieces right there on that driveway. I drove straight to Amelia's house that night. She opened the door before I even knocked, pulling me into a hug so tight I thought my ribs would crack. "You're safe here," she whispered. "I won't let you go through this alone." Her words were the balm I needed. But as I sat on her couch, wrapped in a blanket with a cup of tea trembling in my hands, the truth settled heavy in my chest. I wasn't just losing a husband. I was losing the life I had built, the future I had imagined, the identity I had carried for 12 years. And all of it, every piece, was being handed over to Mia. The first nights at Amelia's house were the hardest. I would lie awake on her guest bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the creaks of her old house and the distant hum of traffic. My body ached from the surgery, but the deeper wound was in my heart. Pulsed with every breath, a reminder that I had been cut open in more ways than one. Amelia tried to make me comfortable. Fresh sheets, soft blankets, chamomile tea before bed. She sat with me in the evenings, talking about anything and everything to keep my mind away from David. But it didn't work. My thoughts always circled back to him. I pictured him in our home, sitting in the living room where we once laughed together, now laughing with Mia. I imagined him in our bed, the place where we whispered secrets in the dark, now whispering them to someone else. It was torture. One morning, Amelia found me curled up on the couch, still wearing the clothes from the day before. "Grace," she said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder, "you can't let this destroy you. I know it hurts, but you have to take care of yourself." I shook my head. I don't even know who I am anymore. For 12 years I was his wife. Now what am I? You're still Grace, she said firmly. You're still strong. And you're still here. Her words touched me, but they didn't sink in. At least not then. The days blurred together. I tried to distract myself by watching television or reading, but my mind was too foggy to focus. I cried at random moments, in the shower, in the kitchen, sometimes in the middle of a sentence. My emotions swung wildly between grief and anger. Some moments I missed David so much that my chest ached. Other moments I hated him with a fury that scared me. One afternoon I received an official letter from his lawyer. Divorce papers. Seeing my name written alongside his in a legal document felt like a cruel punctuation mark on a sentence I didn't want to end. My hand shook as I held the papers, the words blurring through my tears. Amelia sat beside me. You don't have to sign right away. You have time to process this. But the thought of dragging it out made me nauseous. It's like he's cutting me out of his life piece by piece. And now he wants me to cut myself out too. She took the papers gently from my hands. Then let me hold on to them for now. You focus on healing. One step at a time. Healing. The words sounded impossible. How do you heal when every day feels like another knife in the same wound? I avoided social media, but curiosity got the better of me one night. Against my better judgment, I typed David's name into the search bar. The first thing I saw was a photo of him and Mia at a restaurant, smiling, wine glasses raised. His arm was around her shoulders the same way it used to be around mine. Caption read, "New beginnings." My stomach turned. New beginnings for him meant endings for me. My body shook with rage as I slammed the phone down on the bed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something against the wall. But instead, I buried my face in the pillow and sobbed until my throat was raw. The betrayal wasn't just that he had moved on. It was how easily, how quickly. As if our 12 years together had been nothing but a placeholder until Mia came along. One evening, Amelia convinced me to step outside with her. "Fresh air will help," she said, tugging me gently toward the park near her house. I resisted at first, but she was right. Crisp air and the sound of leaves crunching beneath our feet brought a tiny sliver of relief. We sat on a bench, watching children chase each other across the grass. I envied their innocence, their ability to laugh so freely. "You know what hurts the most?" I whispered. "It's not even losing him. It's knowing he didn't care enough to wait. That he could watch me suffer in a hospital bed and still plan my replacement." Amelia squeezed my hand. "That says everything about him, Grace. Not about you." Her words echoed in my mind later that night. Maybe she was right. Maybe his betrayal wasn't proof of my inadequacy but of his cruelty. Still, knowing that didn't stop the tears from coming. As the weeks passed, I started to notice the silence. The silence of not hearing David's car pull into the driveway. The silence of not cooking dinner for two. The silence of a life I no longer recognized. And yet, beneath the silence, there was something else, an emptiness that could either swallow me whole or make space for something new. But at that point, I wasn't ready to see the possibility. I was still broken, scattered into pieces I didn't know how to reassemble. The lowest point came one night when I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. My face was pale, my eyes swollen from crying. My scar peeked out from under my nightshirt, a cruel reminder of my physical fragility. "This is who he left," I whispered to my reflection. "This is who wasn't enough." The words hurt. But as they hung in the air, something inside me stirred. Maybe it was the faintest flicker of defiance. Maybe it was sheer exhaustion. I didn't know yet. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in this state forever. Amelia walked in then, holding 2 cups of tea. She set one down in front of me and looked me straight in the eye. "Grace, you've been through hell. But listen to me, you're still here. And one day, you're going to look back at this moment and see it as the beginning of something stronger. I wanted to believe her. I wasn't there yet. But for the first time since that day on the porch, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, she could be right. The first real step toward reclaiming myself came unexpectedly. Amelia had left a brochure on the kitchen table one morning, support groups for women recovering from divorce. I stared at it for hours, the glossy cover featuring women smiling, their arms linked, as though they had found a sisterhood in their shared pain. First, I scoffed. That's not me. I'm not the type to sit in a circle and talk about my feelings with strangers. But by evening, when the loneliness pressed too heavily against my chest, I picked up the brochure again. Something about the idea of not being alone in this darkness tugged at me. The following week, I walked into a small church basement where the group met. The air smelled faintly of coffee and paper. Folding chairs were arranged in a circle, and a handful of women, all around my age or older, smiled gently as I entered. My heart pounded. I wanted to turn around and leave. But then a woman with kind eyes introduced herself as Linda. "You're safe here," she said softly. "No judgment. Just stories." I sat down, and for the first time since David had thrown me out, I felt a tiny thread of belonging. As women shared their stories, betrayals, losses, rebuilding, I realized my pain wasn't unique. I wasn't the only one who had been blindsided, discarded, replaced. Hearing their voices gave me a strange strength, like I was standing on ground that had once swallowed others whole, but they had climbed out. When it was my turn, my voice trembled. My husband left me right after surgery. He brought another woman into our home while I was still recovering. The words spilled out faster than I expected. He told me it was over, handed me divorce papers, and I haven't been able to breathe properly since. The room didn't gasp or pity me. They nodded, some with tears, some with quiet murmurs of understanding. It was the first time I didn't feel invisible in my pain. After the meeting, Linda hugged me. "You're stronger than you think, Grace. Showing up here proves that." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without tears. From there, the small steps began. I signed up for an art class at the community center. Painting had been something I loved before marriage but abandoned somewhere along the way. Holding a brush again, watching colors bleed into each other on canvas, felt like breathing after suffocating for too long. My first painting was chaotic, all jagged reds and blacks, but it was honest. It was me. I started walking every morning, even when my body ached. The air was crisp, the sound of leaves crunching beneath my sneakers grounding me. With each step, I felt the fog inside me clear just a little. I began journaling, pouring my heartbreak onto paper. Some nights, I wrote letters to David I never intended to send. Letters filled with anger, sorrow, questions. Other nights, I wrote to myself, reminding Grace, the woman in the mirror, that she still mattered. Amelia noticed the changes. One evening over dinner, she smiled at me. "You're glowing again, Grace. It's slow, but you're coming back." I laughed softly. Some days I feel like I'm crawling. Other days like I might even stand tall again. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. That's all healing is. One shaky step at a time. The divorce papers loomed in the background, but this time I wasn't paralyzed. I hired Richard Thompson, a lawyer recommended by one of the women in the support group. He was calm, sharp, and reassuring. Sitting across from him in his office, I felt like I was finally taking back control. "We'll make sure you get what's fair," he said. "He can't just discard you without consequence." Hearing those words steadied me. I wasn't powerless anymore. Weeks passed. My hair began to shine again, my cheeks regained a hint of color, and my laughter returned in small bursts. I still had moments of grief, still woke up some mornings aching with memories of David, but the weight was lighter. Then came the turning point. I was at the farmer's market one Saturday, carrying fresh flowers and bread when I saw David and Mia. They were across the street, arguing loudly. David's face was tight, Mia's eyes blazing. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. For a moment, the old pain threatened to pull me under again. But then something remarkable happened. Instead of shrinking, I stood taller. I adjusted the flowers in my arms and walked right past them, my head high. I didn't stop. I didn't engage. I didn't need to. For the first time, I realized I was no longer broken in their shadow. Later that night, Amelia asked me how it felt. I smiled faintly. Like I finally remembered who I am. And it has nothing to do with him. The healing wasn't finished, far from it. But the pieces of me were slowly finding their way back together. And for the first time since that fateful day on the porch, I believed I could build a life without David. A life where I didn't just survive, I lived. It was a cold December morning when my phone rang. I had just finished painting, a soft watercolor of a winter landscape, and my hands were still smudged with blue. I glanced at the screen, expecting Amelia or Linda from the support group. But the name that appeared made my chest tighten. David. For a long moment, I just stared at it. My finger hovered, tempted to reject the call. But curiosity won. I pressed accept and lifted the phone slowly to my ear. Grace, his voice came, ragged and urgent. Please. I need to talk to you. I closed my eyes. Just hearing his voice reopened wounds I thought had begun to heal. What could you possibly have to say to me now, David? There was silence on the other end, then a heavy sigh. She's gone. Mia. She took everything. My savings, my investments, $1 million, Grace. She cleaned me out. His voice cracked. I don't know what to do. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. $1 million? The number spun in my head. I remembered the arrogance in his eyes when he told me to leave, the smug smile Mia wore as she claimed my place. Now it had all collapsed. Grace, he continued, desperation dripping from every word. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I shouldn't have left you. Please just give me a chance to make it right. I almost laughed. Not out of joy, but disbelief. A chance? You threw me out like trash, David. Do you remember that? I was standing on our porch after surgery, barely able to carry a box, and you told me it was over. I know, he pleaded. I was a fool. I didn't realize what I had. Mia tricked me. I cut him off sharply. Don't you dare put this on her. You chose her. You stood there and let her humiliate me. You signed the papers. You ended us. He was quiet, but I could hear his breathing, heavy and uneven. I'm begging you, Grace. I need you. I've lost everything. His words hung in the air. I need you. Not I love you. Not I'm sorry. Just a cry for rescue now that his world had collapsed. I thought back to those nights on Amelia's couch, crying myself to sleep. The mornings I forced myself to walk, to paint, to breathe again. The faces of the women in the support group who had lifted me when I couldn't lift myself. All of it had taught me something David never could. I was stronger than I ever imagined. David, I said finally, my voice steady, you didn't lose everything. You threw it away. You traded a wife who loved you for a fantasy, and now you're living with the consequences. Grace, please. No, I interrupted. I spent too many nights begging for your attention, your compassion, your loyalty. I will not spend another second begging you to remember my worth. You don't get to come crawling back because she stole your money. There was a long silence. Then a whisper. So that's it? That's it, I said. The woman you knew, the one who would have taken you back no matter what, she doesn't exist anymore. She's gone. And in her place is someone who knows she deserves better. I hung up before he could answer. My hand shook, but not from weakness. From power. For the first time, I had the final word. When Amelia came over that evening, I told her everything. She laughed, shaking her head. The irony is almost poetic. He destroyed you, and then his so-called upgrade destroyed him. I smiled faintly. Maybe that's how life balances itself. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about balance or revenge. It was about choice. David chose betrayal. Mia chose greed. And I chose survival. As the days passed, I thought less and less about his plea. The image of him, desperate and broken, didn't haunt me. Instead, it reminded me how far I had come. I had rebuilt my life piece by piece, and I was no longer willing to hand that power back to the man who had crushed it. The winter gave way to spring, and with it, a new chapter of my life. I continued painting, even sold a few pieces at a local gallery. I volunteered at the support group, guiding other women who were just stepping into the storm I had survived. And for the first time in years, when I looked in the mirror, I liked the woman staring back at me. David's regret was his burden to carry. Mine was learning to let go, and I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel and please share out to your loved ones.